in the margins. Today's guest is Dr. Robert Garza from Palo Alto College. So just wanted to jump right in, Robert. My youngest daughter wanted to go to San Antonio for spring break this year. Didn't know why she picked that. And she told me she wanted to go to the Alamo. So anyway, we were down there that first weekend of April 7th. And when I was looking for hotels, talking about having price shock again, it was crazy high. But I found out that the Battle of the Flowers was going on.
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing thing. I had never heard of that. I mean, great bands. I mean, the high school bands there were just phenomenal. Food trucks, all that kind of stuff. So tell me a little bit more about that and what involvement does the school have, if any, with that?
Well, we didn't participate in the Battle of Flowers parade this year. We did participate in the Flambeau Parade, which is an official Fiesta event.
Uh-huh.
So roughly right around the same time. So Fiesta went a little early this year. And during Fiesta, we have an official Fiesta event at Palo Alto College. We had two headliners, Michael Salgado and David Lee Garza.
Mm-hmm.
And we had right now looking at almost 22,000 people on our campus.
Wow.
During our PACFest event. And then we followed that by participating in the evening event, which is the Flambeau Parade. So we actually have a float, a Palo Alto College float with a Palomino on it. And our king and queen of Fiesta and our students and myself and my family were able to participate. And the Flambeau Parade, so I'm going to just switch it to the Flambeau Parade, they estimated about 1 million people were at the evening Flambeau Parade, and which was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Is that the one that was on Saturday night?
It was on a Saturday night, yes, sir. Yeah. And what I loved about it is, during Fiesta, most of us wear these medals. We have sashes with medals, and then I have a sash that says El Presidente. And so as we're going down, I would hear chants of El Presidente kind of shout outs. But what was more meaningful for me is when I would hear the shout outs and I know that they were former students of Palo Alto College saying Palo Alto College and PAC and, all of these, as we were going down, there was a lot of cheers for PAC and a lot of it was from our former students or members of our community. And that was really special for us.
You said something there that really resonated for me, and it was resonating for me there when I was there, because that Friday morning, the day of the Battle of the Flowers Parade, I got up early to go walking like at 6:30.
Yes.
And I was like, where are all these people doing out here? I mean, it was so many people out that early. I didn't know there was a parade coming.
Yeah.
And they were setting up, and it was just, and I ended up watching. I couldn't help but watch it. It was going out right outside my hotel. But it was really nice. And unfortunately, we left Saturday afternoon, headed up to Austin.
Okay.
So I didn't get to see the Saturday night thing, but some of the folks were telling me, oh, you need to see that. So I almost felt like people outside of San Antonio don't know about it unless you're from the area. But if people want to put something good on their calendar, I would thoroughly recommend it.
Absolutely. The Battle of Flowers, of course, it has significance historically, but it's a time when our city comes together, celebrates as a city, and particularly after COVID, I think we all needed it.
Right.
We needed to come together, and San Antonio is an amazing place because people know how to have fun safely.
Yeah.
And it's really a great event for families and for fun and for connecting with our community in very profound ways. So although we didn't participate in the Battle of the Flowers Parade, it was truly a blessing and to participate in the Flambeau, which was our first time participating in the Flambeau Parade. We'd never done that before, so that was pretty exciting.
That was good. No, I tell you, I was just blown away by the high school bands. I officiate college football, and these high school bands sound better than a lot of colleges I've heard. I was thoroughly impressed.
Yes, we're rebuilding our band. COVID kind of took prevented a lot of our students from participating, but we have the soon to be world famous marching mariachi band here at Palo Alto. So it's a combination of mariachi and marching band. We may be the only ones in the country, but that is what we came together. And if you've ever heard a mariachi play, just imagine mariachis with a drum line and a tuba, different instruments. And so really, culturally relevant within our city, kind of keeping that together with our traditional mariachi. We do have traditional mariachis as well, but it is definitely something we're very proud of that we started. In fact, right before COVID, we had a great contingent of students. Unfortunately, we're trying to figure out that we're trying to kind of keep pace and as we get more students to come back on campus to get them more involved.
Right. I also wanted to give kudos to the San Antonio Community College District. Before we started recording, we were talking earlier about the most promising places. We did just come out with the list for 2022, and four schools out of your system made the list.
Yes.
Northeast, Lake, Northwest Vista, San Antonio College, and St. Philip's. And I think you guys had been on there in the past, but you weren't this year.
Yeah, we're the missing college.
I'm sure just because you didn't apply. That had to be it.
It is because we didn't apply. And it's interesting that you say that, because pre-COVID, I was having this conversation with our director of strategic initiatives and saying, we're not on that list, and I know we should be on that list. And we hadn't applied, and then COVID happened, and I think that kind of, we lost track of it. And so if you want to put an addendum on there, we can do that, or we'll support you doing that. But yeah, we definitely need to get it back on our radar, so we'll apply next year. Yeah,
we'll definitely remind you guys for next year. So yeah, we will be recognizing them this weekend at AACC, and then officially at NYSOD Memorial Day weekend. And the last thing I want to ask you about before we kind of delve a little deeper into some of the student success stuff is I was reading about, this is interesting. I like what you're doing. I was reading about the pizza with the president at your institution. So I wanted to get an idea and share with the audience, why do you do it? Who comes, and what's your favorite pizza?
Well, I'm a big fan of pepperoni, but my daughter loves supreme. So I think me and my son are more the pepperoni guys. Yeah. My wife and daughter are more the supreme ladies, but we'll mix it up. I will tell you that I do two events. I do Pizza with the President, which is for our students. It's an open forum and an open dialogue. And then I do Coffee with the President, which is with our faculty and staff. And it's also almost like mini town halls, if you will, or fireside chats, just to have a conversation of how things are going, if there's opportunities for us to improve, or if they have suggestions or comments or something that we need to discuss, or we need to know, we can have a conversation. And that's both for the students and faculty staff. So with Pizza the President, I'll tell you that it is an opportunity for us to connect with students in a different way. I do work with my colleagues, the vice presidents, and sometimes the deans. We put on our aprons and our little chef hats, and we hand out pizza to all of our students, and then we do walk around and have conversation with students. And I'll tell you that one of the most memorable Pizza with the Presidents was I had this lady approach me and say, I want to know who's in charge of this event. And I said, well, I'm the president. This is Pizza with the President, and love to dialogue. And she said that, she was going through her purse, and she didn't know if she had enough money to eat lunch today. And she was just so grateful that we had food available, so she had an opportunity to eat. And she talked about how she had children at home, and they're her priority. And so as parents, we protect our children and we care for our children. And oftentimes we go out so that we can provide for our children. And it's a eye-opening experience when you have somebody that's sacrificing nourishment for themselves so that they could provide for their children and put food on the table for their children. And so we were grateful that, we had this event. She could, eat as much pizza as you'd like. But then we also, I was able to direct her to our share center. So I said, once you're done here, let's get you to a share center. You get some groceries so you can take home for your family. And so, when you have these types of events and you have food, students come.
Right.
And oftentimes we think it's because, it's like, hey, this is a free pizza, but more so there's a deeper meaning to it. And I think that we need to recognize that.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. I mean, literally last Wednesday, I was up in Rhode Island at a school. We were doing a diversity workshop to our Keep It Real game. And that was a draw for how they had a mixed group of faculty and students to come, but they told in the invite, hey, we're giving out food. And pizza was ironically the same thing they gave out. And that was the draw for a number of students. And then at the end, similar story, there was pizza left. And this one lady was saying, could she take it home to her kids?
Sure.
She wasn't sure what she was going to fix them for dinner. She wasn't necessarily saying she didn't have anything for dinner, but hey, if you guys are going to throw it out, I'll take it. But, I have talked with a number of folks, especially during here, I don't even want to say post-COVID, but during COVID, where institutions were providing support like that you mentioned, and they were having a hard time with the outreach. A lot of times students, and it sounds like this lady didn't even know you had that available.
Right.
And so it kind of actually kind of dovetails into something else I was reading about. The Texas, I'm sure you're familiar with this, the Texas Reskilling Support Fund grant.
Mm-hmm.
When I was reading about it, it felt like it seems like a number of, like the money just wasn't getting out there to a number of people. And I was reading about some different institutions and how they were, couldn't find students or didn't get the word out, et cetera. So just wondering how you guys fared with that. And for those who didn't know, this was, correct me if I'm saying this right or wrong, that from the COVID relief funds, there was money available to students who were impacted to continue their schooling. But apparently, all the money hasn't been spent yet.
Yeah, I'll tell you a couple of things. One is I'm going to go back to the pizza because as part of my personal story, when I was having that conversation with a student, it resonated with me because when I was an undergrad, I used to purchase. So at the end of the semester, I started to begin to purchase the Little Caesars pizza that you get 2 pizzas for one.
I remember that. Yeah.
Well, that's all I had to eat. And so I would purchase that and have that as my food for a week because I didn't have money for groceries, and that was very affordable food for me. And I'd run out of money, and once that pizza was gone, then I didn't have food. So that was an important piece for me, and it kind of hit that reminder button for me as well, because I could relate in that respect. Now, I will tell you, in the reskilling, funds, particularly for us, we looked at more in our HERF funds to be very strategic. So the funds that not necessarily that the state received, but the funds that we as an institution received. And we were able to give out, I believe, over $1 million for student advocacy for individuals that were coming in saying that they were in need, and to provide them. We started programs like Alamo Books so that our students did not have to pay for textbooks for college across the entire district, which is a pretty bold initiative. but we were really keying in and focusing in on debt relief. So we were able to provide some debt relief for students, provided them if they applied for funds so that they could pay for electricity, childcare, rent or housing or auto or whatever it is that they needed. We were able to do that in a very big way. The state funds, I'm not as familiar as how successful they were in their distribution, but I know that what we were doing was very intentional with the dollars that we received from the federal government. And we are truly blessed to have folks that cared enough for all of us really to provide us with funding that had direct support to students. And they may not realize it, because I know that sometimes folks are in the mindset, well, this is a great thing, or maybe they don't think that folks needed as much help. I'll tell you that they needed help and some. And you hear the stories, right? So you talk directly with students. So we're boots on ground. And when you're talking to students, again, that are looking to put meals on the table, lost a job, lost a family member because of COVID, they themselves being sick, maybe they lost their job, they have family members that they're trying to take care of. I mean, this was a real thing. And we're just very fortunate that we had support from folks that helped us get through this in a very meaningful way. Now, is it enough money? It never is, right? So,
Right.
Once the dollars, we were fortunate to get an extension on our HERF dollars, but those are dollars that we had already anticipated to be spent out by actually next month. And we're going to hold on to them for another year, but it's less money, and those were targeted for initiatives that we were going to do this year. We're just going to be able to do some of it again next year, but at some point in time, those dollars do run out, right?
Yeah.
But the needs do not stop.
Exactly.
And that's the challenge that we're all facing, I believe.
Yeah. The thing I was reading, it wasn't a negative hit job kind of piece. It was more saying, I guess how schools applied for it was, okay, this school said, hey, we could service 1,000 kids and we need X amount of dollars. And they got that. And now at check-in time, it seems like they only spent half of it. So what was the issue, of how?
Well, I'll tell you, for us in the student advocacy, we actually overspent. So we had to plug in more dollars institutionally that we had HERF, that we had looked at institutionally, and we had to move them over to advocacy because we spent probably 110%. So we had to cover that other 10% because we just didn't tell students no.
Right. And see, that's where you got to, dig deeper on some of these stories, because like I said, they only pulled out the examples of the ones that had not,
I got
and obviously there definitely were some successes. Since we're talking about COVID, I know you did some of your doctoral work on online learning. So how did that help Palo Alto College during the pandemic?
So it helped us. So I also worked in distance ed for 10 years here at Palo Alto in my earlier, somewhat youthful years, I guess you could say. But I think not only Palo Alto, but community colleges in general were able to pivot in a very easier way, in a very quick way, because we've been working in online distance ed for 20 years. This isn't, it's not new to us. Now, where I think we could have done a better job, not only at Palo Alto, but I think for community colleges, is that we should have lent our expertise to our K-12 partners who had never worked in distance ed. So my lens is that, and we tried to do that, but we're kind of like working through this emergency mode, trying to figure things out ourselves. But my lens is that we've been doing this for 20 years. Our K-12 partners, this is the first time they've ever had to do it.
Right.
And so they don't know the pedagogy. They don't know, that if you just put assignments on, or that if you have cameras off and you don't engage and you don't have these expectations, and having a child that was still in high school at the time, going through that, and I'm like, why aren't you in class? And he's like, I'm done. I'm like, what do you mean you're done? He would go and show me. The class was on for 5 minutes because the teacher's like, here, read these things and let's call it a day.
Oh my God. I mean, my experience was almost exactly the same, because my daughters were seniors and sophomores when it started. And I would say the same thing. Are you finished with class? Or sometimes just walking by, looking over their shoulders, I was appalled at what I saw.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are y'all doing? I mean, one teacher who just basically gave them a worksheet, if you will, to do. That's all they did.
Right.
And he was sitting there at his desk reading the newspaper or whatever he was doing, and said, if you got questions, just say something. I'll hear you. But it was, yeah. No, I agree. That would have been really good.
I had even one better, because I saw my son. I'm like, hey, you're on your cell phone. You're supposed to be paying attention in class. He goes, Dad, the teacher's not even here. So it was a camera of the blank background because they gave them an assignment and then they walked away, and he pointed out, look, they're playing video games, they're on their cell phones, these guys are asleep, and then these students aren't even here. And so again, and I don't fault educators, because they were going through the same challenges, and they probably had family right in front of them, their own kids and children and so forth. And everybody was trying to adapt and navigate the best way that they knew how to do it. I just think that we had an opportunity to really provide our expertise, because again, we've been doing it for 20 years, and we could have helped them understand that what the examples that I gave you is what was happening 20 plus years ago at community colleges, where we were putting things very static, and we were dumping tons of information, like, this is what we had in our classroom on campus. We're just going to put it all online, and you can click it and do and self-teach and do all these things. Right. Well, that was the perception 20 years ago, but we know that you have to have constant engagement for students to be successful. So for me, in my experience, I was able to kind of navigate through that a little bit better, because I had that distance ed perspective. And then we've been working on our faculty are experts, not only in their discipline, but they've been certified to teach online learning because they went through training to do that. And so that they would have some perspectives of best practices and learn from other educators that have been there, done that. And so I'm fortunate that, we were kind of on the forefront. And again, we've been doing this for 20 years, and we have some amazing faculty and staff here at Palo Alto that really made it easier for everyone, I think.
Yeah. Here's something I fear, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this, or if there's even any data out there on it. I'm sure there's no data on it just yet, but I'm going back to the high school kids, in particular, those the past 2-3 years who've had to deal with the pandemic. My oldest was a senior, so when this started, it was March. She was graduating in May, so she didn't really miss anything. But my other daughter was a sophomore, and so she did the online learning all, the end of her sophomore year, all of her junior year, and through first semester of her senior year. So this semester is the first time that she's fully back on campus. And the anecdote that you gave, that I said, I've also heard from other friends and family members about their kids. So, as a person who is definitely looking at student success when they get on campus, are you fearing there's going to be any type of deficits that these kids are coming in with for the next couple of years?
Yeah, so there's definitely a learning loss, and I think we all know it. I know that sometimes we don't want to talk about it, but what we've been communicating here at Palo Alto is that we have to acknowledge that there has been some learning loss. And I've seen articles where our ISD partners, they're doing their benchmarks and they're seeing gaps. And so there is a ripple effect of what's to come. And so we are fortunate that we had this discussion pre-pandemic about what, like our SAC COC, as we're going through the process and so forth, of what our QEP would be. Well, our QEP just so happened to work out to be embedded tutoring. So we've made a tremendous investment in tutoring to make sure that we are being proactive, and our tutors are case managing students. So as they come in, we don't wait for them to come to the tutoring center. We are having these conversations, and they have to work with every single student so that when you come to Palo Alto College, you're not only assigned an advisor that will work with you through graduation, you're assigned a tutor. So you have a success team that's going to work with you from beginning to end. And so when we were looking at, what our QEP, and we looked at, this at a college level, and it bubbled up from bottom up, that we would really focus in on that. And it has become all that much more important because we know that we're going to have students that are coming in that are going to have had learning loss. We're also faced with the students that are graduating this year, because we're in Texas. This is the first year that these students have been 100% in the classroom, because in the state of Texas, when COVID was at its highest, they were still required to go to school. Students were still required to go to school. We had a little flexibility, but our ISD partners did not. And so we're also prepping, because we think that because they didn't do remote for one full year, when they come back onto campus, they're going to have an expectation to be here on campus, because that's the way they were last year. Right. Whereas the year before, students were remote, and then they had an expectation that they were going to do a little bit more remote than they were on campus. And so as a community college, you have to be nimble and kind of really swim through the river, I guess you could say, with every now and then you're going to get hit by a wave, and just be able to pivot. So we have to pivot as our students are kind of coming in different learning modalities and different ways into what we're going to offer. I will tell you that there's no way that we can think the same way pre-COVID, and we've always been able to pivot. But now it's, you're pivoting on one side of the field. You said football, right? Or you coaching. So right. you pivot to one side of the field, you're on this side of the field, you're gonna have to run all the way to the other side of the field. So that's, and maybe you have to go back, or, sometimes you're going forward, sometimes you're going back, but you're trying to figure out that way, or that formula, if you will, that's going to meet the needs of the students as they come in, because it's always changing.
Right. No, I like that. That besides the academic advisor, that you guys put a tutor with the student.
Yeah.
That's like my wife. She used to run the tutoring center at Northern Virginia Community College. And she talked about how just vastly underutilized that was by students.
Yeah, that's right.
So, for them, and I don't know what they're doing now, but at that time, this was mid-90s, they basically came into I think they came into freshman classes to let them know about the tutoring center, and that was it. But that's a lot different than being assigned someone who is, having two-way communication with you. So,
and we take it a step further, Ralph. Let me tell you what we did is we partnered with communities and schools, and this all kind of came. I was reading an article in K through 12, and I think we may be the only college in the country that's doing it. Is that if you stop showing up to class, I send somebody to your home. So we go knock on your door.
Y'all got truant officers.
That's what I'm talking about. So yeah. we're trying to figure out why you left, and if there's an opportunity for us to provide some of our services to you. So with our partnership with communities and schools, they work traditionally on a national level with K through 12. And I started to think, and after I was reading this article, I said, if they can do that with K through 12, why don't we do that?
Right.
And so we started the conversation with communities and schools. We signed an agreement. We have 2 social workers that work with community schools that are based here at Palo Alto College. They go out to the schools. Our employees, with our vice president, Gil Becerra, started also going to folks' homes, to students' homes. And we were asking them questions, like, hey, is so-and-so there? No, they joined the military, or they were in this accident, or they started a family, or, hey, what happened? Well, childcare, or mom got sick, dad got sick. And then we started to explain to them what resources we had and how we could help them, and that they could come back. So out of 1,000 students, we had about a 33% return in the first semester. And so that's 300 lives that are going to be re-engaged with us and can work towards this transformational change with education to ultimately end generational poverty. So this is really a big deal. And we're continuing to do it. I'm waiting for the data for this spring, but we're going to go to you. If you stop coming, for whatever the reason, don't be surprised that we're not going to show up at your door. And I think it also provides a sense of vulnerability, because now you're at my home. It's like you're breaking bread. And now I might be a little bit more open because I'm on my turf, and I feel a little bit more comfortable. And then let's have a conversation, and let's see how we can help you and get you back to Palo Alto College and help you with your education so that you can graduate and then move on to either to that next level of employment or into that four-year institution. So that was really a big launch and a very big deal for us. And so we're excited that has been as successful as it has.
No, I like it. And I've heard of other schools doing what you're saying, not in a systemic way, but more of one-offs from people who were just, I'll just say more dedicated to their students that they had come across, that they called and went and looked for this person, et cetera. And the same thing that, you find out these things that, somebody got pregnant or somebody had childcare issues, illness, death, et cetera. And they just couldn't cope. And so the schooling was the first thing that went. So when you're thinking about the students, obviously, I think for most, the goal is to graduate.
Yeah.
So, they obviously have to have a good academic plan. And so when those students, for example, that you re-engage with, even though you say there are resources for them, this, that, and the other, I'm just thinking about the reality for them, especially if they're having additional stresses now in their life. How do you guys work with students on their academic plans so that they can see that, hey, I still can get this done in 2 years, or I'm part-time and it's only going to take me 3, and so that they're not wasting time taking classes they don't need to take, or money, so what do you guys do in that regard with I guess maybe all your students, not necessarily just those students, but all the students?
Yeah, so this is a holistic plan, right? So we have an initiative, and I'm just going to kind of start from the beginning and walk my way through. We have an initiative called Educate South. And so with Educate South, we've partnered with all of our ISD superintendents and schools within the southern sector of San Antonio. We have nonprofit partners, we have business partners, because really it truly takes a village to get students from beginning to end. I just met with the city of Floresville, the mayor pro tem and the city manager, and we're having these conversations about how we can help be part of solutions and vice versa, and how we can partner and move things forward. But with Educate South, we start with our Texas Vista Hospital. Every time a child's born within our community, we want to have conversations with the parents about college. So really? We have little, our baby caps that we give out at the hospital. We've created a coloring book that has programmatic artwork that was designed by our faculty and students. So every coloring book page is a work of art, and they're coloring about programs that we offer here at the institution, all the way through Alamo Promise, where we offer students 2 years of college at no cost. We're very intentional. So the moment you start here at Palo Alto and new student orientation, I always say that you have 48 hours to connect with a student before they make a decision whether they're going to come back, whether it's immediate or with it 6 months or 6 weeks down the road or 6 months down the road that they're going to leave. Because if they haven't found a way to connect with us and we haven't found a way to connect with the student, then they're less likely to continue or to graduate. And so we want to be very intentional. So we have our new student orientations. We have our family day where we bring in the parents as well. So parents, bring your little brother, your little sister, bring in your tios, your tias, your aunts and your uncles, bring them all in, and let's have a big pachanga, a big party here at Palo Alto to celebrate the start of your college career. And let's have the conversations of the direction you want to go. So with our advising model, the moment you step foot on campus, you're assigned an advisor, you're assigned a tutor that's going to help you get to where you want to go. And we have peer advisors, so near peer advising, right? So our peer advisors are also talking with students. We have a faculty mentoring program that's helping. We have faculty to volunteer through Dr. Amanda Salinas, who's been leading that charge to work with students if you have challenges. We have, the PAC men for our men of color and our men here at Palo Alto that, also looking for mentorship and assistance or that connectivity. So we have mentees that we work with as well to ultimately get students to the end. We incentivize. So if you graduate within 2 years, in fact, this is the first time that we're going to be doing it at graduation. If you graduated on time, and every year we're going to be doing this through our partnership with North Park Toyota, that if you graduate on time, we're going to randomly select 10 students. And 10 students are all going to get a key, and then one key will start the engine of a brand new car. And at graduation, you could literally be that one student that drives off with a brand new car. So we're keeping those things in mind to say, hey, look, this is possibility. This is it. And by the way, if you do these things and you go, you graduate within 2 years, there could be something in it for you, because we also look at incentivizing opportunities by participating. And we have some other ideas that we're going to be exploring, like pack bucks. And, what does that mean? So if you go to a sporting event, or if you go to tutoring, or you're just doing well in class, that we give faculty an opportunity to incentivize some of these things, so that students see that there is some reward. Because if you wait 2 years for your reward, sometimes it almost seems impossible, or if it's 3 years or 4 years. But it's almost like a stackable credential. If you're giving them little rewards down the road, then they see, and it just kind of remotivates them. And so we've been working very hard to give employment opportunities through experiential learning, as well as here on campus, because if you work on campus, we can continue to mentor you. Or if you have an exam the next day, we can say, hey, you know what, don't come in, go study for your exam, go pass it, then come back, and we can work with your hours and things like that, because we can be more flexible. But yeah, so starts at that Educate South, college starts at birth model all the way through, and then having those other extra pieces that sometimes we take for granted, but not here at Palo Alto. We don't take anything for granted. We want to make sure that everybody's successful.
I am impressed with this. I haven't even got out the hospital yet, and the college is already talking to me. So just how long have you been doing that long enough where you've actually have had students who have come from that point in time, or this is something recent you guys have started?
It is something recent. We started right pre-COVID, and as you can imagine, COVID happened, right? But what we've been talking about is, particularly within our community, which has a low educational attainment rate, high poverty rates. Can you imagine receiving a letter in English and Spanish, depending upon your language, that says, congratulations on the birth of your new child. We know that your child is going to be doing some amazing things within our community.
Right.
And so it's like, you know, and this is coming from a college president, or this is coming from Palo Alto College. It's like, my child, you know, and now let's start thinking about their future. And so one of the things that we talked about too is that when the babies turn 1 year old, we want to have a big birthday party here on campus to bring all the babies in.
Mm-hmm.
When we have our STEM events, when they hit 3rd grade, you know, I mentioned the coloring books, but keeping the kids engaged. So we have a pumpkin patch. We have the only winter Wonderland drive-through lighting here on campus that we do every year. And then of course we have PACFest, because what it boils down to is when you're a first generation, and for me, I don't know if you see this picture right over here, I'm a multi-gen. So I started college with my 2 older sisters, my dad who was in his 40s, and my grandfather who was in his 70s.
Really?
And yes, and we started at a community college all together. And I'd never stepped foot on a college campus until about 2 months before I graduated from high school. And that was because my best friend, Aron, got accepted to A&M College Station. His parents had to work. And he said, can you come with me to new student orientation?
Right.
And I didn't know places like that existed.
Right.
Because I was like, what is this place? I'd never been to a college or university. And so I got motivated and had to hustle, and I had to work when I was in school, just like most of our students do as well. And but I wanted to work with a great team, and we talk about it here, is to change the narrative. So for me, you know, I'd never been to a college campus in my entire life until 2 months before I graduated. We want kids in our community saying, I've been going to college my entire life.
Yeah.
We need to change that narrative.
Make sure I caught what you said. And so the first college campus you went on was Texas A&M?
Yes, and
College Station?
Yes.
One of the biggest schools you could ever go to.
That's exactly right. And my eyes just opened like, what? And then I started asking questions. How do I get here?
Right.
And so then I went to my local community college at Texas Southmost College, and my dad was like, what are you going to do? And
you went there? Okay.
What my dad did, and he probably wouldn't remember this, but when I was going to graduate, I was going to go in the military. My dad's retired Army. Both my grandfathers, Guadalupe and Nieves, both served in World War II. And, you know, I had uncles and cousins and everybody's going to the military. That's what I was going to do. Right. And my dad said, if you go into the military, you can do that, but go in as an officer. And in order to do that, you need a college education. And if you go to college, I'm going to go with you. So then it becomes a family commitment. And that's why it's so important for us to work with parents, particularly from our first gen students, so that we can provide this information and provide this opportunity and see beyond the immediacy of, let me get a job right now and make some money, which I can do that. Right. But wow, it's an opportunity cost if I can just kind of make somewhat of a sacrifice, do a couple of years or 4 years, get that degree, and then perhaps, and well, we already know this, the data already shows the more education you make, the more money you make. And so you'll make some immediacy here, but wow, with that education, it so much jumps up that you're leaving money on the table without getting an education.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, you guys are hitting it from both sides. You know, understand that you guys, the advisors you talked about, that they meet with the students at their 15, 30, and 45-hour milestones. So how important is it to meet with them at those milestones, and how has it impacted the student success there?
Yeah, so the first one is we meet with them with 0 hours, right? So
well, yeah.
At the beginning. and really the key is relationships, right? So that's really important. Many of our advisors are actually from our community. And in fact, many of the folks that work here at Palo Alto are from the community for which we serve, and they know how important it is. And those milestones are really big because they're little check-ins, like how are we doing? Let's make sure that we're on the right path. Let's make sure that we're not taking classes or hours that that you don't need. And so when you look at our data, I think we're down now to where we used to be once upon a time, is that I think that we had students that had taken, on average, we had about 90 hours before a student graduated with a 60-hour degree. Now, this is like 15 plus years ago. We are now, for a 60-hour degree, roughly at about 62 hours on average.
Yeah, that's what we talked about earlier, about having that clear academic plan. Yeah.
That's right. And so our students are one course, less than one course over than a 60-hour plan. And that one course could be, you know, I love music, so I took that one music class. But we are extremely intentional about making sure that our students have the information and in guiding them the best way that we possibly can, so that it minimizes their time here. Now, we love our students and would love for them to stay forever, but if you go part-time and you take a while and we're not working with you, life happens. So 2 years versus 10 years. In 10 years, life happens. You start a family, you know, somebody gets sick in the family, you start employment, things like that. Those things are less likely to happen in 2 years than they are in 10 years, because you have a ton more time.
Right.
So we're very intentional about working from those 0 hours to 15 to, you know, 42, all the way up until graduation. And you meet with one advisor. It's the same person. So the other thing is that we have advisors that have been here for 15, 20 years, right? So it's not like we have a constant churn. So more than likely, if you start with that advisor, by the time you graduate, that advisor is still going to be the same person, and they can shake your hand right before you get up on that stage or when you're walking off that stage. So it's about forming those relationships between the advisors and students, and that's so important.
I really love the advising aspect of what you guys are doing. That, you know, staying with someone along the way, you know, really helps. You know, just I'm thinking of different things that I've been involved with. When you have a mentor and someone that's there with you, you are, I don't know any numbers, but you're less likely to stray, if you will.
Right.
You know, you'll stay on that path. So it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of innovative things I hadn't even heard of before, to be honest. I mean, I'm loving this Cradle to graduation. That, you know, that is awesome. It makes me think. Frank Matthews, who is our publisher, he's from South Carolina. He always talked about, people used to wonder, I don't know if you remember Strom Thurmond, like, how in the world did he stay in office all this time? This guy's crazy. But he said, you know, Strom used to, if you got married, had a child, death in the family, he personally wrote you a note.
Yeah.
And sent that to people. And so when you make those connections, especially at, you know, critical times in people's life, you know, I think it has an impact. So the last thing I want to ask you about that Linda was telling me about was my computer went down, so I don't have all my notes in front of me now, but I think is it Navigate Student? Is that your app that you guys are using, and how that's working for you?
Yeah, so we have Student Navigator, or we have navigators, that kind of help. And so that's kind of like in the, you know, our connection, entry, progress, completion, that Texas Pathways moment, and identifying and making sure that students are navigating through the system. And so that helps us with our advising model by having those navigators. And now we have, here at Palo Alto, we were very fortunate to receive a grant, a LISTO grant, Title V, that enables us to also have some career navigators that are helping students with experiential learning on campus and off campus as well, and both paid and unpaid. And so we have some intentionality there as well. We've also been fortunate to receive some McKinsey Scott dollars. So that was about $20 million. I'll tell you, is the craziest experience of my life, because, you know, having worked in community colleges for as long, 25 years now, I guess, those dollars aren't given to community colleges.
No.
And so that was a very transformational change opportunity for us, to make sure that we have opportunities to impact our students in the best way that we possibly can, and not looking for transactional with those dollars, but looking for transformational with those dollars. And so, yeah, so we've been working the career navigator component, our advisor component. We have some additional funds, and then we're finding ways to connect with students. So I tell folks I love to dance. And one of the things that I will do is I can get you here because you're interested in something. Right. And then I do the Texas two-step and get you an education while you're here. So you may be here for one thing, but ultimately you're going to leave with an education. And so, you know, athletics is a big part of it. So we have club sports, but we know that if it's the more students connected, right? So I'll give an example is we had a club baseball team tryout for 9 spots, right? So, well, I mean, you always have more, but only 9 people can play at the same time.
Right.
And we had 50 young men show up to try out for this team. And my team was like, what do we do? What do we do? You know, because I mean, you might be able to carry 20, but 50. Right. I said, we're not turning anybody away. I mean, I said, well, so we created 2 teams. Right. So we'll have 2 teams, we'll kind of make it work. And then on our softball, I was talking to, you know, we had a player that had just started her own family and didn't know if she was ever going to get to play again or even go to college. Right. And so we gave her both opportunities to both play and, you know, you start your family, but you're going to get a college education. I talked to one mom that was in the stands and her daughter was playing and she was watching her grandchildren, you know, and they got to see their mom play. And she goes, I never thought my daughter would ever get to play again. Right. And we had one student that said, I had not gone to college in 3 years. I graduated high school in 3 years. I just remembered loving to play softball when I was in high school. And it was so great and memorable for me that I came back to school to play what I love to play. And then, by the way, now I'm enrolled in college. Now I'm a college student. Yeah. And it's like, okay, but you're going to get that education. And that's really the key. And our female athletes actually outperform every student category that we have on campus academically. And so they're getting it done.
Yeah. No, you didn't even think about, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but we do the Arthras Junior Sports Scholars Awards, where we recognize student athletes that are doing well in the classroom and on the field. And, you know, it's a labor of love for us. We've been doing it since '92. And, you know, we keep raising the bar because there's so many students that are qualifying. Honestly, we just can't process them all. Right. I think when we started, the minimum GPA was 3.0, and then we just had too many. And then we took it to 3.2 and to 3.0 to 3.2, and now it's at 3.5. And we've reached that number now at 3.5, where we had to cut it off at 3.2. You know, so I don't know if we're going to raise the bar anymore, but yeah, and I've heard that too, that female athletes, not just at your institution, but in other places, have excelled as well. Now, are any of your sports, you know, JUCO affiliated, or are they all club?
They're all club. We used to be NCAA D3 once upon a time, but in 2008, when the recession hit, unfortunately, we had to regress because of budgetary means. Right. You know, someday I'm hopeful that it will return. We operate our club sports, I think, probably just as much as a D3 would. So our club team members are required to have mandatory tutoring. They have mandatory volunteer hours. So they have workout schedules, just, you know, and so they get progress reports from their instructors, because we want to know how well they're doing. Again, it's very intentional. Last year, every student athlete had to participate in faculty mentoring. So they were paired up with a faculty member that also mentored them. and their student organization provided, I know it was like right before pre-COVID, before they were able to do some of the things, but they provided more service hours than any other student organization on campus. And one of the things that we launched, the previous year is also our students also receive Letterman's jackets. So if you look at, I got it from Notre Dame. So I was looking at an article with Notre Dame where they had their Letterman's ceremony, and they had their male and their female athletes as they entered their first year receive their letter. And if you remember that movie Rudy, kind of remembered him wearing that Letterman's jacket with the Notre Dame letter on that. And I was like, you know what? Why can't we do something like that?
Yeah.
And I tell you, it is the most amazing thing, because it'll be 100 degrees out here in San Antonio, and these kids wear those Letterman's jacket with pride. You know, I'm a student athlete and I want everybody to know it. And I'm like, my gosh, aren't you melting in that jacket? And but it's important to them. And that's it's a status. It means something. They're part of a team. They're connected with the institution, and they're advertising Palo Alto College all over the city. So I love it. But they've worked hard and they've earned it. And so we had our first Letterman's jacket ceremony pre-COVID, before, you know, in 2019.
Right.
And it's been truly an opportunity. But again, it's finding ways to think outside the box and outside the norms, and finding ways for our students to even be more connected in. And I tell you that I'm sure that people ask, you know, every time they see the jacket, like, you know, oh, you're a Palo Alto. So, oh yeah, I'm an athlete. I'm on the baseball team. I'm on the softball team, on the volleyball team, what have you. But yeah, right now just club sports, but we operate probably just as efficient as a D3. And the crazy thing is that if we were ever able to go back to D3, because we have Alamo Promise, you know, you can come play your sport. In D3, you can't offer scholarships, but with Alamo Promise, you come here 60 hours at no cost anyway.
Right.
So it's almost, it's like, they can't give you a scholarship, but you're going to get an academic one because you're an Alamo Promise. So my hope is someday that will return. I think it's positive for our institution, particularly because that when you look at the research, athletes, particularly those students of color, don't necessarily get as much access, and it's become more and more challenging for them to get access, because you almost have to be on a club team, travel team, that costs membership dues and money, and you got to buy the uniforms, and then you got to travel, and then you family and food and hotels and all of those things just to be seen. And if we could do something locally, I think that would have a profound impact on our community. So I'm hoping one day that we get there as a system, and, you know, we'll see, because it's all about our students and their experience and helping them get to that success.
Yeah. No, Dr. Garza, I want to thank you for your time. I was just really impressed by what you guys are doing for student success. I definitely see why folks at CCCSE brought you to my attention. So thank you. And we're talking about sports. So the last thing I got to ask then is, are you the 12th man, or you hook 'em horns, since you went to both schools now?
So I am a 12th man, and I'll share with you probably about maybe 9 years ago, I went full contact football.
Oh, really? So
yeah, I put those pads back on, and maybe about 9 years ago. But had a great time. You know, I know what sports does. I'm also a former ultra marathoner, and just, you know, grew up playing sports my whole life, and I know the teamwork and the camaraderie that comes with it, and people kind of helping motivate on a very profound way. But you know, I loved the work that I was able to do at UT, because it was a phenomenal doctoral program, and the faculty at UT in the doctoral program were second to none. They were just absolutely amazing and gave me an amazing experience that has helped me and guided me to where I am today.
Right.
But I got to tell you, I bleed maroon. So it's one of those things where, you know, A&M helped me build that foundation to where I'm at today, and very blessed with the opportunity. And then of course went to UT San Antonio for the master's when I was working there as well. And so just truly blessed. It takes one person to change somebody's lives, and I've been very fortunate to have many of those one persons in my lives that have helped me get through these journeys. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I watch A&M football.
Yeah. Well, you know Evelyn, right?
Yes.
I think you guys are in the same boat, right? I think she went to A&M undergrad and UT grad.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't change that.
Right. Exactly. All right, sir. Thank you for your time. Hopefully, we'll cross paths down the road. Are you going to be at NISOD? If not,
yeah, we were just talking about it right now. It looks like I'm getting registered for it.
Okay. Good.
So hopefully, I will hopefully, I'll be able to make it. But you know, we're kind of navigating through a million different things as we close out the semester. But I'm going to do my best to get there.
All right. Well, again, thanks a lot, and we appreciate your time.
Hey, I appreciate you, Ralph.